Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Facebook Live from Alzheimer's Orange County. My name is Melissa Klabe. I'm the Director of Education here at Alzheimer's Orange County, and I'm joined by the lovely Kim Bailey, one of our programs and education specialists. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning, Melissa. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Excellent. So happy to be here.
Me too. Great. Well, as you can see, today we're going to be talking about meal times, some challenges we often face, how we can strive to make them a more positive experience. So before we dive in, of course, we're going to give a shout out to our wonderful sponsor, Caring Companions at Home. They've been sponsoring lots of our Facebook Live education over the past several months. They're committed to providing seniors with quality in-home care. They have personalized and affordable in-home caregiving services. They have a four-step process to ensure a really solid fit. They have a care manager home visit to assess your loved one's needs. They develop a detailed plan of care. They have a caregiver matching system. And then, of course, periodic follow-up visits to ensure that everything is going well. So we are so thankful for their sponsorship. They're a great community partner of ours. So thank you again, Caring Companions at Home. And we could not do this without them.
Absolutely.
So let's start off today thinking about our own experiences with mealtime. And I'd love for anyone joining us right now to chime in as well. If they can think of it may be kind of hard to think back to the last big meal we had during this time right now where we're trying to stay away from big dinner parties. But I don't know, Kim, do you want to share a special experience you can think of?
Yeah, I was just reflecting on how this used to be so commonplace. I mean, meal times are social events, and I don't know about you, Melissa, but I used to go out to dinner all the time before the
Yeah,
pandemic hit. And it's one of my favorite things to do. It's a favorite pastime for me, going out for dinner, going out to dinner with friends and family. And it's really about so much more than the meal, isn't it?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and so I don't know if a particular occasion comes
Yeah,
to mind, but more like a montage of many, many happy memories. And when you contrast that with what it looks like for the person you're caring for, I think there are many, many poignant differences because we're talking about social occasions, not just putting a plate in front of someone and telling them it's time to eat, right?
absolutely.
There,
Meals are so full of memories and traditions. And I mean, depending on what your cultural backgrounds are as well, I mean, they're just so packed with meaning.
yeah,
And I think it's so easy to forget that. I mean, for me, I just think about my favorite meals are those slow meals with lots of friends. We kind of snack on some appetizers or drinks beforehand. We're all kind of in the kitchen, tasting things and getting things ready and then sitting down together and just there's no rushing, you almost kind of don't want it to end sometimes, and nice music in the background and just share. It's just, breaking bread together is this thing that, is so filled with meaning. And so, thinking about what it would be like if we weren't able to experience that anymore, if, certain cognitive changes that we were experiencing kind of challenged us in ways that threatened those, positive experiences, that would be pretty disheartening to think about. Meals are really important to us. It's like you said, it's more than just stuffing our body with food, for sustenance, right?
yeah. Actually, I will share real quickly that I went out to dinner for the first time a couple of weeks ago in a
Mhm.
restaurant and with my sister, and I was struck by the overwhelming sense of happiness that kind of
Mm.
cascaded over me. And I just said, this just feels so normal. Just
Yeah,
sitting here in a pretty setting outside, and there was music, as you said, playing, and we were just having a normal conversation, and we had drinks and a nice meal, and it felt so normal. And so I think what a lot of our folks who are living with dementia experience at mealtimes is a sense of loss. And so
yes,
I think we need to really think about that and kind of take a deep dive into that and see what we can do to
absolutely.
replace those feelings of loss with those feelings of normalcy, like I experienced
Yeah.
the other day, because it makes a powerful difference.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, I mean, during this time, I think we're all experiencing that loss. So maybe we get a little hint of what it might feel like
Yeah,
for somebody else that might be experiencing those losses in normal times, right? Before COVID times. So
Absolutely.
what are some of the challenges that we're talking about when we say that cognitive changes can impact the quality or positive experience of a meal? We can kind of just go back and forth on these, Kim. I'll talk about the first one, memory loss. So someone may have forgotten that they have or haven't eaten. They may forget how to physically feed themselves, of course. They may become frustrated if they forget that they need somebody to
Hmm.
help them, to assist them, and kind of, that kind of wanting to be independent, of course, which we all want to be. How about, do you want to take another one of these, Kim?
Yeah, I may have shared this story in the past, but I remember one time being in line with someone at a buffet, and the person was someone
Yes.
that had memory loss, and she was struggling with just the complexity of she picked up her tray and she picked up her utensils and she started to serve herself, and she actually started to put portions directly onto her tray. She had forgotten the step of picking up a plate.
Hmm.
And my heart just broke for her.
Yeah.
And I recognized that she had that disorientation and confusion that you see on the screen there, just trying to multitask, probably having visual spatial problems, all of those things sort of coming together in the perfect storm. And so all of the skills that we take for granted that come into play when we're eating and preparing and getting a meal, were very evident in that moment. And that was a powerful experience. It happened very early in my career, and
Mm.
I was very struck by that. So,
That's a great example of, I think, a lot of these
yeah.
elements together, like you said. And we'll talk a lot about visuospatial kind
Hmm.
of the effects of that and what we can do about that. Of course, the loss of physical skills, and we'll talk about some adaptive equipment and techniques we can try.
Right.
Language problems, of course, possibly the inability to express their personal preferences or,
Hmm.
what they're feeling, or any pain or discomfort or hunger. So we kind of have to be good detectives, like we talk about a lot. Of course, the
Yeah.
lack of concentration.
And that
Go ahead.
diminished taste or smell
Yeah.
uh, really comes into play because, well, later on in the illness, when there is often a weight loss associated with the illness, part of that maps to the fact that their sensory input is changing. And
Right.
so we have to be creative and, spice things up a little bit because sometimes food just isn't very appealing. And that could be
Yes.
from a visual standpoint or just from that sense of it doesn't taste as appealing. So well,
Right.
there's a lot going on with meal
A
times.
lot. Yeah. We're going
And
to
this
try to
is a
get through some of it here.
yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah. Let's do it. This is something, it's a general comment on
Mhm.
us assisting with personal care. These things are very intimate. We talk about bathing a lot, obviously, as a very intimate thing, but mealtimes can be very intimate too, and something that you're not used to having somebody have to help you with a lot. So, we have to be very in tune that the person we're assisting may be feeling an acute lack of independence or autonomy, and we want to give them as much of that as possible, that choice, that feeling, not that they're something's being done to them, but something's being done with them, that we're kind of, in this thing together. Of course, we have to, be aware that they may have changes in their motivation. Like you often say, that start button just isn't quite there to initiate the task. And how can we help do that in a way that preserves their dignity and autonomy and independence? And we always want to be, those words always want to be in the forefront of our mind.
Absolutely. And above all, we want to avoid conflict, right? We want this
Yes.
to be a peaceful, happy meal that harks
Absolutely.
back to those memories we were talking about when we started out. We want this to be social and
Right.
engaging. So
Yeah.
it's
Not
a
just
tall
another
order.
to get through. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this quote, and I'll just briefly share it here. It's from Dr. Al Power, and he's a geriatrician, a dementia expert. He says, "What is commonly seen as confused or challenging behavior is, in actuality, compensatory or adaptive behavior by an individual who continues to express their agency and purpose in their own unique way." And that's just kind of a way of saying all behavior, all distress, everything that we see is communication. And we should just be looking to, what is behind what this person is saying, or the action this person is doing right now. How can we help put them at ease? How can we, kind of fill their cup so that they don't feel so distressed? You want to take this one, Kim? Talking about connection. We always talk about this. It's so important.
Sure. Absolutely. So, remember that everything we do with the person we're caring for is an activity, especially when it comes to meal times. And every activity presents us with that opportunity to make a connection. And making the connection is what we're all about. It's not about the task at hand or completing a particular task. It's all about making a powerful connection, one that brings about pleasurable emotions and a feeling of security and happiness.
And we say this a lot too, but it's like the Maya Angelou quote: people will forget what you said and they'll forget what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And I think with mealtimes, that's really important too. We want that positive experience so that when we come back into the kitchen or into the dining room the next time, we're thinking, this was a positive experience last time. I want to be here. I'm excited to, share this meal today. Not, oh, this is going to be, I don't have great feelings about being in this room.
Right.
So obviously with personal care, it's really important to get personal. And by that, we mean know the intimate details, know those preferences and dislikes very well, so that, we can incorporate those into the whole experience. What I like might not be the same as what you like, Kim, at a mealtime. And so, kind of relying on what the person liked in the past, when they ate their meals. Did they have the morning paper at their breakfast, table? Or, what types of things would make them feel, like this routine is a part of their day that's a positive experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything to this?
Sure. I was just, when you talked about the paper, it's like I remember having this conversation with a couple, and she said, well, my husband's always read the paper at breakfast, but now he doesn't comprehend it. I said, it doesn't matter. That's his ritual. She
Right.
said, he's reading it upside down. I said, it doesn't matter. Don't correct him. If that's his thing and that's what he's doing and it feels right to him, we roll with the punches. And so, absolutely. Yeah.
And just as how a small detail like that can really make a difference, and the fact that she knew that about her husband and was able to still, kind of provide that part of that ritual for him. That's really crucial, I think.
Yeah. I was remembering too that the lady who I cared for had a lifelong ritual throughout her marriage with her husband of having, this is a little controversial, but she had what she called a highball with her husband before dinner. And so a highball is an old-fashioned way of saying a cocktail. And so with her family's permission, we preserved that ritual for a very long time. And trust me, the drink got weaker and weaker as her disease advanced. And it went from being a cocktail to a mocktail. And she never really realized, but it was more about the ritual. And believe me, it was lovely for both of us.
Absolutely.
And we sat out on her deck overlooking the ocean. And I always made a little hors d'oeuvre, and we had our little drinks and, looked out at the ocean. And then we had our dinner together. And so preserving these patterns and rituals is what Melissa and I talk about on and on and on. It's called person-centered care. And, this is exactly what people who are living with this illness need, to have their way of life preserved. And although she couldn't do this with her husband anymore, I was a poor substitute, believe me. But it was my role to preserve as much of her former lifestyle as possible. And we would laugh and, watch the neighbors go by. And you guys have heard me talk about that before. That was her main interest in life, was what are the neighbors doing? So it was a very pleasant time, and it meant a lot. And the pleasant time, the pleasant feelings, those are preserved for a while. That nice feeling floated, she floated through dinner on that. So it was really nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that story. Yeah, and if anybody has any stories to share with us, please feel free to share in the comments. We'd love to hear your personal stories, or even you or your loved one,
Yeah.
mealtime rituals. We love hearing from you guys. So let's move on to kind of, how we can set the stage for a positive experience. Um, of course, we know that environment can have a huge impact on our experience, whether or not we have cognitive changes. I know that if I'm in a room where I'm expecting, kind of a peaceful meal, and there's a TV on, and there's, all kinds of distractions, and that might not set a great tone for the
Mhm.
beginning of the meal. So trying to think about a calm environment, maybe some nice music, like we talked about, reducing distractions and interruptions if possible. Kind of like with bathing, kind of have, if you can, having everything you need there to start with, so you don't have to keep getting up. Because I remember when I would have some meal times with my mom, who has Alzheimer's disease. Anytime I would get up, that was kind of a signal to her to get up. She's like, "Oh, well, we're getting up now." So if I could minimize the amounts of time that I was getting
Right.
up, that definitely had an impact on her, as
Mhm.
well. Of course, respecting their preference for how to dress. I mean, if it's someone that liked to get all, dressed up for a meal time, for dinner, supper time, that's a great tradition to preserve. And if they're more casual, no need to force anything besides that.
Right. Right. I like the one about remove unneeded items because
Yeah,
too much on the table is very distracting and it's confusing because they don't know what to do
absolutely.
with all that stuff. I'll never forget one time, I put the ketchup on the table and I had the lid
It was
off
not a
of it.
catch-up meal.
Well, what happened was she picked it up and went to shake it and it went everywhere,
Oh,
and then she was embarrassed, so I laughed, and we
yeah,
ended up having a good laugh over it, but,
yeah,
worse than that is that they don't know what to do with, like, a lot of extra excess
sure.
utensils, and you just really
Me either,
need
honestly.
seriously, we just wanna minimize and have
Yeah,
the things that we need and not have a lot of clutter. Now, I like flowers. I like flowers on the table.
yes,
Candles are nice, make it nice. It's better for
absolutely.
them, it's better for you. Lifts our
Yeah,
spirits. Um,
absolutely. Um, the approach. So even the simple act of inviting someone to dinner can have a huge impact. And all these things really set the stage for how that whole experience is going to go. I mean, and this could go for any other activity as well, but I think for meal times, these are kind of fun. Instead of, "Hey, we're eating now," or, "It's time to eat." Um, "Would you join me in the dining room?" What an invitation, I mean, how can you say no to that? So I think, getting creative and clever and just making it such a fun experience. Yes, of course, I'll come with you to this activity. It's not just, again, it's something we're doing together. It's this communal experience, not just something that's going to be done to me. Someone's going to feed me later. It's this thing that we're enjoying together. And I want to come to that. Right. And of
right.
course, thanking them, for trying repeatedly. I mean, even if it's a day that's not going so well, thank yous and I'm sorries can go a long, long way. Right.
Mm. Sure, and, they may say, "Well, I just ate, we just had dinner." And then you go,
Hmm.
"Well, oh, yeah, I know, but I'm still hungry, so just why don't you humor me, just sit with me."
Yeah.
Don't argue if they say something like that.
Yeah.
And the other thing
Keep,
is
oh,
oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was on that point where I was going to mention this later, but if they do say, "I already ate," Tipa Snow had a great suggestion that was, "Well, wait, how about you? Would you taste this for me? I want to see if I got this right. Would you mind tasting this for me?" And that
That's
may prime their appetite, in a way that, if they haven't eaten in a while, but, kind of an old memory in a new place they thought they've eaten, that may prime their appetite. And I think that's a good approach too. But go ahead, what you were going to say as well.
well, and I think we talk about this in a little bit anyway, but it's all the better if they've helped you to prepare the meal.
Yes.
That really primes them for sitting down
Absolutely.
and enjoying it with you if they've been a part of the process. So,
Totally.
yeah.
100%. So as you were saying, a beautiful tablescape always does the trick, right? Flowers, candles, I love these pictures because they emphasize something that we talk about as well, which is a high color contrast between the food and the plate. There have been some studies that show that eating off a red plate helped the person eat 25% more of their meal. And that is hypothesized because, the color contrast is something that can diminish as Alzheimer's progresses. So if you have a white plate and you have, white mashed potatoes and a white cauliflower, they just might not see it. They might not be able to perceive that there's more food on that plate. It also might look more appetizing with a color contrasted plate. So there's a few reasons that's definitely worth a try. It's something that you can kind of easily see if that helps you out. I don't think it has to be red, but a nice bright color would probably be really helpful. So I think that's kind of an easy tip that I've heard from many people that has been successful for them.
Yeah. And do you all know what Fiesta ware is? It's really durable plastic ware that comes in bright colors. And it's just very practical and inexpensive, and it's ideal for people living with Alzheimer's and other
Perfect.
dementias. Yeah.
Nice. Great tip. So of course we want to be in tune to what the person is experiencing. Are they having a pleasant experience or are they not? And if they're not, why not? We need to really dig down and see what's going on. Are they worried about something? Are they anxious or agitated? Do they want to eat? Are they, is this a good time for them to be, having this meal? Would they prefer more privacy? Another one that's really important is assessing for pain. Could they have some pain, some dental pain? That's really important to assess. Do you see any excess drooling or pocketing of food? Those are things you definitely want to talk to a health professional about and possibly get an assessment by a speech language pathologist who can determine if their swallowing is being impacted, and those are really, really important things. Of course, if they wear dentures, you want to make sure that they're fitting well and that they have them for their meal times. These things are so, so important for mealtime.
Yeah, and if they, you might see more restlessness like for the evening meal because of sundowning. So kind of be on the watch for that. And sometimes people just can't sit still for dinner. And
Right.
I know that years ago when I started in working in care communities, we would make finger food, and if they wanted to pace, we would let them. They needed to do
Absolutely.
that, and
Yeah.
we just hand them,
No sense in trying to force someone to sit down
we
if
just
they're
hand them
not
a quarter of a
comfortable.
sandwich when they were walking by, and just, I mean, the goal was met. They ate, and they were pacing, and that was comforting to them, and so it was okay. So.
Just kind of joining into whatever their rhythm that they're in and figuring
Mm-hmm.
out how to, make it work for them. Of course, we want to also preserve whatever abilities are remaining at the time. And, make sure their mealtime is as successful as possible. As I mentioned, dentures, very important. If they do wear glasses, make sure they have them at the meal, as well as hearing aids. We want all systems firing as much as possible in order to ensure that they have a good experience and are able to eat. Of course, we want to start paying attention to how much food and fluid is consumed if that's becoming a concern. If they are having specific problems like not being able to hold certain utensils, we'll talk about some adaptive equipment we can use. There's all kinds of fun things out there now that are really, really helpful. Are they able to stay upright, sit in a solid dining chair? That's always preferable to the couch or a wheelchair. If they're able to sit upright in a dining chair at the dining room table, that's definitely preferable. And as I mentioned, paying attention to chewing and swallowing and making sure that they're being safe, and that we make changes if necessary.
Yeah, and I resisted bibs for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I used linen napkins, and I just tucked the corner of the napkin in her blouse, and it looked so much more elegant, because it's all about preserving dignity. But later on, I did have to use bibs, and I bought the most dignified,
Yeah, I've seen
ones
a number of companies out there that make really beautiful ones, actually. I mean, totally washable and everything like that, but they're just, they're not like infant child. That's, we kind of want to stay away from that.
They're
Yeah.
actually quite beautiful. So, yeah.
That's good. That's a good point. Absolutely. Yeah. So this talking about, making adaptations, and I'll talk about the adaptive silverware and things like that. But I found this really, really interesting. So if a person is at a point where they do need, change in their diet, softened foods, pureed foods, we often see it, and I know it might be small for some people if you're watching on your phone. We often see it as pictures on the left where it's kind of just the little ice cream scoop blobs, or, a pureed meal in a bowl. Doesn't look so appetizing, but it's amazing what a little bit of creativity in a food mold can do. So if you'll see the pictures on the right, it kind of looks more like meat and peas and like what it's kind of supposed to look like. The bottom is peaches on top of like a kind of a yogurt or ice cream. And these pictures are actually from a study where they interviewed residents and showed that they not only ate more when the food was presented this way, but just had such a much better experience. They made comments like, wow, this meat is so tender. And, they were residents before that were kind of very disinterested in, the pictures that you see on the left, ate much more and were much more excited to eat. So I'll put a website in the chat just because I think it's very cool. It's pureedfoodmolds.com. And they have molds. We're not like sponsored by them or anything, but I just think they're a cool website. And they have this kind of instructions on how to do this. So if that's something that, is in your journey, part of your journey, or down the road, something to think about, that might be interesting to look into.
So that's
or if
the
you're
same
staff at a
meal,
care community.
Melissa? That top,
Yes.
that top one?
Isn't
those
that
two?
amazing? Yeah.
The difference is remarkable, really.
Totally different.
Yeah.
And I know which one I would be interested in eating and not
Absolutely.
eating. As you mentioned, Kim, making foods available around the clock if we can. They may not prefer to eat at traditional meal times. So those finger foods, and finger foods don't have to be just chicken nuggets. It can be carrots or whatever, little sandwiches. It can be something a little bit more healthy than, typically what we think about as a finger food. Anything that can be portable and, safely consumed while someone's strolling around, is fair game.
Yep. Yeah. I'm just
And you had mentioned mocktails as well earlier, which I think is such a great idea for, especially someone that's used to cocktail hour. Just makes drinking water more fun too, if there's a little lime in there or something, to kind of some mint, something to give it a little color. Yep. We want to be promoting independence as much as possible, not only for their sake, but for ours as well. We want to, I think we kind of get into the habit. I know I did at times where I was just it was just easier for me to just do everything. I would just kind of cut up all the food and, and kind of get through mealtime. And after a while, kind of, this isn't a great experience for either one of us. She's not feeling, like this is like she's a part of this. It's kind of being done to her again. And I'm not feeling, I kind of course, want to maintain as much of her abilities for as long as possible. Right. So we have a number of things we can do. Sitting side by side, the best way we can kind of model what's going on, use visual and verbal cues, kind of remind them. The hand over hand method is great. I mean, and that's literally just kind of guiding their hand, if they're kind of unable to bring food to their mouth. I also like Teepa Snow has what she calls her hand underhand method. And I'll try to show you here. It's a little difficult to kind of show you on the small screen, but basically it's like you go up to someone and start to shake their hand, and then you kind of slip your hand like this. So you're kind of doing this grip here. And then you would take, I have a pen here. So you would take a pen, let's say this is a pen, and you're helping feed them, but their hand is still coming to their face. So that hand-brain connection is still kind of working in such a way that they, this is a normal motion that they expect. And it feels like they're feeding themselves in some way with those neural connections, but you're doing kind of the fine motor work of using the spoon, right? So it's a little bit different than hand over hand, where kind of they have the spoon and you're kind of guiding their hand, which might feel a little bit forced. I really like the hand underhand method. And I can put a link to that in the comments later, where she shows that in a video. That's really excellent. So that works for brushing teeth as well. any task that you need to do in their mouth, which think about just a hand coming at you without your hand attached to it. That could be a real recipe for disaster because our mouths are very sensitive areas, right? We don't want just anybody in there. I don't love going to the dentist, even though I trust them. But I don't love hands with things, with metal spoons just kind of coming at me. It's not a very comfortable place to be. So anything we can do to help have them be as much of part of the process as possible, I think will definitely have a more successful interaction there.
Yeah, I really like that approach. And of course, Teepa Snow is a fantastic resource. She's just fantastic.
Absolutely.
So anything that gives the person we're caring for a feeling of more control is excellent. So
yes,
very nice.
All the way. Kim, you want to talk about these a little bit?
Sure. I mean, these, when we say adaptive tools, these are like the types of things that an occupational therapist would recommend, but you can be your own occupational therapist. So you see that like the utensils those are just like a rubber grip that slide over the end of the utensils, and it just makes it easier for someone to maintain a grip on those utensils without them slipping out of their hands. And then on the plate, honestly, I need these things. The plate has got a raised curvature to it so that, for example, when they're trying to scoop up something like peas, the peas don't go rushing off the plate. So these are things that help them maintain their abilities longer, and they're more dignified, and no one wants to fight their food, right?
No.
So whether they're eating a salad or peas or anything that can tend to get away from them, these are tools that are going to make things easier. And then the cups, they're adult versions of sippy cups.
Right.
They're just,
that lid can be really
things
helpful.
Are just going to help prevent spills and accidents and help people to maintain their dignity. So these are great.
Yeah. And there's many more out there depending on what you need, but these I think are a good start for most people. So we're going to face challenges, right? I mean, that's kind of the nature of the journey. But again, I think back to that quote on challenging behavior. They're not trying to be difficult. They're not trying it's not personal against you. But we often feel that way, and it's hard not to take things personally. But we really need to step outside a little bit and see if we can try to, see where the distress is coming from. What can we do to lessen that distress? Validate their concerns. If you sense that they're feeling fearful or anxious, hey, it seems like you're unsettled, or are you feeling a little bit nervous? I'm here with you. Just validating that and making sure they feel seen and heard. Everyone kind of knows when they're getting the brush off, right? Especially people with cognitive changes whose emotions may become even more heightened than ours. They can sense our emotion, and that really can mirror back onto them. So providing them gentle reassurance, lightening the mood, using humor whenever possible, and of course finding ways to maintain their dignity, because the more choices that are taken away, the more independence that's taken away by the disease or by our actions. That definitely can, make somebody distressed and anxious, and that can come out in the forms of, behavior that we see. And so we want to make sure that at every turn we're trying to maintain as much of those things as possible.
Right. So be sensitive to their body language and what it's telling you, and watch your own body language as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, Kim, earlier, having them help with preparing as much of the meal as possible. I think that's such a great idea. It's something they probably want to do, especially if they've been in the kitchen their life and making meals, or maybe maybe they used to do the whole meal, but now they're just gonna help stir something up, or do a smaller tasks on a smaller scale, which is totally fine. They're still very much a part of the meal preparation, and I think that also stimulates the appetite, makes them more inclined to want to stay with you as you're eating. Use that time to reminisce about other meals that we've talked about, our favorite meals. smells, tastes, textures, all of these things. I mean, smells so good when someone just starts frying up some onion and garlic or baking cookies or whatever it is. I mean, the whole house just smells amazing, right? And so we want to use that to our advantage.
Yeah.
And then do you want to talk again about that larger lunch and lighter dinner? You alluded to it earlier, but
Yeah. So I just think it's healthier. People are, well, health wise, I think it's healthier. That doesn't even make sense, but I think you know what I'm saying. But also, people are just better during the day. They're at their
Mhm.
best during the day. I think you're going to be more successful with serving dinner for lunch and a lighter, kind of supper for
Yeah,
dinner, if that makes sense. Um,
yeah.
yeah, so
I don't
just
love going to bed on a very full stomach either. I don't know about
right,
you, but this
right.
is kind of, yeah, I think,
Have your bigger, healthier meal at
right,
lunchtime and then a lighter dinner. And, if people just don't feel like eating, it's okay. Don't force it.
right.
And you can always wait a while and then say, let's have some dessert. Um, so don't force anybody to eat because even like with the lady that I cared for, we ended up doing 6 small meals a day,
Mm,
and that worked fine. She just couldn't attend to sitting down having a big meal or whatever, and you know this disease, things change and you have to change and adapt, and you'll find your way. But I think the healthier meal for lunch is good. It's probably better for all of us.
probably, yeah. I agree. Yeah. And I think that's a great point that you just made that, we have to be adaptable. We have to be flexible.
Yeah.
We talk about honoring their past routines, which is great. But maybe they're not so into that anymore too. We have to be open to the possibility that their preferences are going to change. I
Yeah.
think knowing also if you are facing a certain challenging issue that's kind of repeatedly happening, of course, we want to figure out if there's something we can do, proactively so that that doesn't happen. But that just may be a phase that is going to last for several months, and just
Yep.
know that the phases don't last forever, and something else, it will change, it will end. And I think that was helpful for me if there was a particular phase where I was going through where I was like, this is so hard, this thing that keeps happening, and it never lasted forever. Something else came along and we had to deal with that, but that particular thing, whatever it is for you, it will change. So just know that there is,
Yep.
change ahead.
That's why support groups are so valuable, because
Yes,
those
great plug for
phases
support groups.
and those obsessions that occur, and when you
Yeah,
go and talk it to your or Zoom with your other support group members and find out that's not so unusual. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
And
Do
this
you
is
want to
what
talk
we
about the
always
quote?
say, right, Melissa?
Yes.
If you don't insist, they can't resist.
Absolutely. It's so simple,
Yeah,
but so true.
it's so true. So, like I was really just saying, if they don't feel like eating, you just wait, and
Yeah.
you can try again later. So,
Nothing good will come from escalating the situation,
nothing good
especially
comes
if
from
it's,
that.
either if it's already getting escalated or if it hasn't been yet. Let's just not escalate it.
Yeah, yeah.
Positive. The connection is more important than the task. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to wrap up here, but we want you to join us if you are able for our virtual walk this year. It's a great way that you can help support our organization, help support like things like this education that we do. You can walk or run from anywhere this year. We would encourage you to please sign up. I'll put the link in the comments, and we will see you there.
Yeah.
We have so many resources for you. As Kim mentioned, our support groups, we have tons of virtual support groups going on right now. There's a time and a date for everyone, hopefully one that works for you. Our helpline staff is always available to take your calls. Questions big or small, if you just need a resource or a referral, we really encourage you to give us a call. If you just need somebody to listen,
Right.
just incredible staff on the helpline. You can join our closed private Facebook caregiver support group. And please visit our website for upcoming education. We'll be back next week for another Facebook Live talking about the importance of the approach. So we talked about it a little bit today, but we'll talk about it more in detail next week. and communication and connection, all those things that are so important as we travel this journey with our loved ones. Any parting words, Kim?
Not necessarily. I think we covered everything pretty thoroughly, don't you, Melissa?
I do. For about 40 minutes, I think we packed a lot in about meals.
Okay.
It's making me want to go out to dinner now.
I
Um,
know. I just, the only thing I would end with is just to thank our caregivers for the great job that you're already doing. And we know it's a difficult job, especially with the pandemic. And so, as always, we salute you and we're here for you. So
yes,
don't
always here
hesitate
for
to reach
you.
out.
Please do. And thank you again, caring companions at home. We
Yes.
value your support so, so much. All right, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
Kim.